The audio is explosive and the threat is nuclear, and the timing could not be worse. Just leaked recordings reveal the president didn't just talk tough on Russia, he threatened to obliterate their capital city. Now Putin is responding with the largest drone assault in history, while NATO scrambles fighter jets across Europe. The man who promised peace through strength is caught between condemning Biden's blank check to Ukraine and his own bombshell threat to turn Moscow into rubble. Is this strategic brilliance or warmongering madness? When you hear what Trump actually said behind closed doors versus what he's saying publicly now, you will understand why the Kremlin is panicking, and the stakes have never been higher. So do not look away. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever wondered what happened to legendary Chuck Norris? Well, I recently saw a video he made. I was shocked. He's in his 80s and still kicking butt, working out, staying active. And what's more shocking is he's stronger, work out longer, his energy left for his grandkids. He did this by making one simple change. He says he feels like he's in his 50s. His wife started doing this one thing too, feels 10 years younger, body looks leaner, energy all day. Chuck made a special video just for you explaining everything. So watch it at chuckdefense.com/next. You'll find it linked down below. It will change how you think about health. Okay, so this is explosive news that has just come out. Mario Nafal, 21 hours ago. Trump reveals Putin threat in leaked audio. We're going to bomb the shit out of Moscow. In newly surfaced fundraiser audio, Trump allegedly revealed what he told Putin and Xi behind closed doors. Now this is really a massive betrayal of one of those people in that room and that fundraiser. Now, I have been to some high-dollar fundraisers for President Trump. I know the protocols that go in to those fundraisers. You have to take your phone, you have to put it in a Faraday bag, and you can carry your phone with you, but it's in a magnetically locked bag. There is no way for you to pull out your phone and record anyone. And that is why at these fundraising events, and I've heard President Trump speaking when he believes there are no cameras in the room. And it's a remarkable experience because you get to see the real Trump. Well, somebody went ahead and they brought a recording device into the room and they recorded President Trump. Now, you are going to hear that audio. We're going to play it for you. CNN, Caitlin Collins broadcast it. Now, of course, CNN is going to have their own spin. Mainstream press, they will have their own spin. But after I listened to it, it dawned on me. I asked the question in the open. Is this warmongering or is this brilliance? Again, this is President Trump. Peace through strength. What you're going to hear. To stop Putin from invading Ukraine, Trump warned, if you go into Ukraine, we're going to bomb the shit out of Moscow. He made the same threat to Xi Jinping over Taiwan. Both leaders, he insists, believed him 10%, and that was enough. No war, no invasion, just deterrence by unpredictability. Now, we have the CNN version. We have a cleaned up audio version, so just pay close attention. Let's hear how CNN framed this.
Find some common ground
that he once had with President Putin. The audio obtained by the authors of a new book that is just out today. And for context, the president has long said that Putin would never have invaded Ukraine on his watch because of something he told him once privately. Trump had never revealed what that was.
I had a very strong conversation with President Putin, and he understood, and I won't go into the great details of the conversation because nobody has to know that. But I will tell you, it never, ever would have happened.
I don't want to say it, but did they fear me? I suspect they did.
Well, tonight we're learning those details as the audio reveals that Trump says that he threatened not just President Putin, but also China's President Xi Jinping. And this is what he told donors about what exactly that conversation looked like during a private fundraiser last year.
To Putin, I said, if you go in, Ukraine, we're going to bomb the shit out of Moscow. I'm telling you, I have no choice. The public wants it. The public. So he goes like, I don't believe you. He said, no way. I said, way. And then he goes like, I don't believe you. But the truth is, he believed me 10%. I told you this. He believed me 10%. Then I'm with President Xi of China. But I said the same thing to them. I said, if you go into Taiwan, I'm going to bomb the shit out of Beijing. He thought I was crazy. He said, Beijing, you're going to bomb Beijing. I said, I have no choice. I got to bomb them. We're going to bomb Beijing. And he didn't believe me either, except 10%. And 10% is all you need. In fact, 5% would have been okay too. And we never had a problem. We would have never had a problem.
The Trump campaign declined to comment on the content of what you just heard there, but the three deeply sourced reporters who acquired that exclusive audio are joining me now tonight. Josh Dawsey of the Wall Street Journal, Isaac Arnsdorf of the Washington Post, of course, also Tyler Pager of the Times as well, are all three the authors on the brand new book that is out today, 2024, How Trump Retook the White House and the Democrats Lost America. And Josh Dawsey, you obviously have covered Trump along with me for years now. Given the audio of what you heard the president saying about Putin then, I wonder what you made of how fed up he seemed with him today.
Well, I think what he was trying to tell the donors there, Caitlin, was that he could have deterred this. He could have stopped this. You heard him say on the campaign trail, if you reelect me, I can stop this immediately. And it's clear Vladimir Putin has not been listening to what Trump wants, right? Trump says, I've been doing all these calls, they're frustrating. He unleashed a profanity as he was sort of describing what he thought of Vladimir Putin and what he was doing. But what you see in that tape is Trump behind closed doors to his richest donors in New York, telling them, I had control over these guys, basically espousing the madman theory, right? They thought I was just crazy enough that maybe I would have done something if they crossed me. And I used that to basically get them to do what I wanted them to do. And I think what the frustration you're seeing now from President Trump, we've reported he says Vladimir Putin has changed. He makes all of these comments in private about how he used to think he had a better relationship with Vladimir Putin. And I think Putin's just not listening to him. Putin's not listening to what Trump wants him to do.
Yeah, and Isaac, when Trump was running, and obviously that is a deep part of the book, is what the Trump campaign looked like internally, as well as the Biden and Harris campaign. But when he was running, the argument that he made to voters was, I can fix this. I can handle this. Putin is scared of me and intimidated by me, as Josh mentioned there. And now here we are, that he's been in office for several months and is realizing that Putin isn't showing a lot of interest in getting the deal that Trump wants here.
Well, more often than Putin being scared of him, it was, Putin was someone he had a good relationship with. And Trump has often talked about Putin as someone who could make a deal with, that they could find some common ground. And a lot of Russia specialists in the U.S. national security establishment looked at that and said, Putin is not interested in improving relations with the West. He wants nothing to do with the West. It just doesn't work that way. You can just give him what he wants and he's going to go home. That's not a way to resolve this war. And Trump is finding that out the hard way now that he's 6 months into past due on his promise for that war to be over. And he's clearly frustrated.
Josh, what did it say to you when...
So, those are the reporters who received the audio. Here we have Trump blaming Ukraine aid delay on Pentagon review. In a call with Zelensky, Trump denied freezing U.S. weapon shipments to Ukraine, pointing instead to a Pentagon munitions audit sparked by recent strikes on Iran. He assured Ukraine of continued support as much as we can spare. Zelensky called Trump call the most productive yet, according to the Wall Street Journal. Trump leaked audio shows he plans to bomb Russia and China. I'm telling you, I have no choice. I don't believe you, Putin says. Again, this is, at this level of world geopolitics, Trump is dropping the big stick right in front of Putin and Xi. Saying, you guys want to pull something? Even if they believe me 10% is all he needs for them to believe. Here's Trump on Ukraine.
We get that was a war that should have never happened, and a lot of people are dying, and it should end. And I don't know, we get we get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless. That was a war that should have...
That was, of course, the moment that the CNN reporter was referring to from the cabinet meeting yesterday. Vladimir Putin calls it like it is. No U.S. president holds real power, and now even Donald Trump, once the loudmouth outsider swearing he'd bring peace, has exposed himself as a fraud. He's cheering on strikes against Iran, piling on debt like the rest, and claiming the Epstein list doesn't exist. Just another deep state sabotage, bowing to the system he pretended to fight, parroting lies while the machine pulls his strings. You clearly tell Richard's no fan. But this is what apparently Vladimir Putin has just said. Okay, I'm gonna do my best here to try to translate this for you. I've already spoken to 3 U.S. presidents. Putin says. They come and go, but politics stay the same at all times. Do you know why? Because of the powerful bureaucracy. When a person is elected, they may have some ideas. Then people with briefcases arrive well-dressed, wearing dark suits just like mine, except for the red ties since they wear black or dark blue ones. These people start explaining how things go, and instantly everything changes. This is what happens with every administration. Changing things is not easy, and I say this without any irony. It's not someone does not want to do, but someone is hard to get things are hard to do. Take Obama, forward-thinking man, a liberal, a Democrat. Did he not pledge to shut down Guantanamo before his election? But did he? No, he did not. And may I ask why not? Did he not want to do it? He wanted to, I'm sure he did, but it did not work out. He sincerely wanted to do it, but it did not succeed since it turned out to be very complicated. This is not the main issue, however, even though it is important. Since it's hard to fathom that people have been walking in their chains for decades without trial or investigation. Can you imagine France or Russia acting this way? It's been a disaster, but it's impossible in the United States and continues to this day. This refers to the question on democracy, by the way. I refer to this example just to show you this is not as simple as it may seem. That said, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that we can and should be able to reach agreements on key issues. So that's Putin just 2 days ago. NATO jets 9 hours ago have scrambled as Putin launches the largest drone attack yet on Ukraine just hours after Trump ripped the Russian president for his BS. Here's Mike Pompeo 5 hours ago. Damn, that Ozempic is making him look bad. He says, let's not forget President Trump was the first president to send defensive weapons to Ukraine back in his first term after the Obama administration left them high and dry. It is in America's interest to ensure that Putin does not win this war.
President Trump's, it's pretty consistent from President Trump. It's worth the world being reminded that President Trump was the first president to send defensive weapon systems to Ukraine back in his first term when President Obama had steadfastly refused to protect the Ukrainian people. It's in America's interest that Vladimir Putin not win this war. I think President Trump can see that Putin has not been acting in good faith. There's no interest in Putin conducting a ceasefire in the way the Ukrainians have agreed to. I think President Trump's decision, the statement he made last night, is the right one. This will demonstrate to Vladimir Putin that the United States is not going to force Ukraine to surrender and that he ought to come to the table and negotiate a peaceful resolution to this conflict and stop killing Ukrainian kids.
Let's keep going. We have more here. Here's President Trump.
We wanted to put defensive weapons because Putin is not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that. We wanted to put...
Now we have that cleaned up audio. I want to play that. I think we have that here. Oh, here we have this. Putin said that Trump is a useful idiot. This is from Blue, Georgia. CNN clip, of course. Julie Rogninsky.
Sort of winning narrative. First of all, Trump is what the Russians would call a полезный дурак, which means a useful idiot in Russian.
You speak Russian?
I do. I was born there, and actually I can tell you everything there is to know about the Russian mentality. And so let me tell you about the Russian mentality right now, so as somebody who comes from the former Soviet Union. Vladimir Putin cannot afford to lose this war. Vladimir Putin cannot afford to be embarrassed in this war, because much like the czars before him, and Mikhail Gorbachev, who pulled the Russians out of Afghanistan, he understands that the collapse of his regime will be predicated on losing face in front of his people. The only way he survives as leader of the Russian Federation is if he can somehow create some sort of winning narrative for this war.
But Trump is trying to do that.
So what I'm trying to say is that
he was. I mean, I guess that's a question right now.
And the problem is this: the United States Congress, the Senate especially, by a vast margin, bipartisan margin, wants to place sanctions on Russia.
We have to.
We have
no choice.
Trump has said consistently that he will not do that. In fact, he said that. I read the Russian media to see what they're saying. In fact, they're saying that Trump is kind of saying, it's my decision, it's not theirs, and I'm not going to do it. First of all, Trump...
Where is that cleaned up audio? Okay, here's the lightly cleaned up audio. Logan Fizzle posted this. Let's listen to this one more time.
Putin said, if you go in to Ukraine, we'll bomb the shit out of Moscow. I'm telling you, I have no choice but Republic. So he goes like, I don't believe you. He said no way, and I said way. And then he goes like, I don't believe you, but the truth is he believed me 10%. And I told you this, he believed me 10%. Well, with President Xi of China. But I said the same thing to them. I said, you know, if you go into Taiwan, I'm going to bomb the shit out of Beijing. He thought I was crazy. He said, Beijing? You're still going to bomb Beijing? I said, I have no choice. I got to bomb it. We're going to bomb Beijing. And he didn't believe me either, except 10%. And 10% is all you need. In fact, 5% would have been okay, too. And we never had a problem. We would have never had a problem.
So do you understand what he's doing here? He is telling them if they F around, they're gonna find out. And all they gotta do is believe 10%. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. So this is the ultimate test of Trump's foreign policy evolution. The man who campaigned on ending wars is now, well, caught on tape threatening to bomb Moscow while simultaneously blaming Biden for sending too much aid to Ukraine. Putin heard the threat loud and clear, launching the biggest drone assault hours after the audio officially leaked. The Kremlin, once called Trump their useful idiot, now faces potential commander-in-chief who is promising to rain hell on Red Square. And you heard Mike Pompeo, who reminded us that Trump armed Ukraine before Biden ever did. So the threats are real, and the world is watching. So here's the question. Is Trump playing three-dimensional chess to keep enemies guessing, or has he abandoned his America First principles? I don't know. I'll tell you, I think this is the biggest peace through strength moment I think we've ever heard. So, for the comments, should Trump double down on his Moscow threat or continue to pursue peace? War or peace? Tell me below. And you can support the truth at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com, because when superpowers clash, patriots prepare.